So June 2nd has passed, which means whether or not you're on a PC or mobile device, you're going to be able to log into Diablo Immortal. I myself am on the PC client right now, and that means that there's going to be a huge influx of players not knowing anything about Diablo Immortal or anything about knowing what to do in the game. So I'm going to be going over all of the things in the game basically as sort of a brief beginner's guide. We're going to be going over everything that you need to know for the first couple of weeks in the game. You can see I am Paragon rank 7 on day 2. I'm going to be grinding more after this. So I've known a little bit about the game and I've pretty much tested everything there is that I can test so far. That being said, let's give you a in-depth guide to the beginner's experience in Diablo Immortal global launch. So first things first, what is Diablo Immortal? Well, it's basically a hack and slash dungeon crawler ARPG. You're going to be going through all the different types of dungeons per se, the Elder Rifts, the Challenge Rifts, the actual dungeons, and you're going to be going ahead and clearing through those, getting XP, getting gear, and upgrading your gear, and eventually using that gear to PvP if you choose to do so. Now, that being said, let's talk about gear first off, because it's an in-depth topic and it could have a video all on its own, but let's get you down the basics when you start out the game. So on the right-hand side, you're going to see your primary gear pieces, and on the left-hand side here, you're going to see your secondary gear pieces. Now, the primary gear pieces are going to be you could say they're both very, very important, but these are going to be the ones you're going to be focusing on at the beginning of the game, because you're going to loot a ton of these random primary gear pieces, as you can see from my inventory on the right. Now, there's a few things to note about these gear pieces here, and I'm actually going to move myself over to the side here so you can actually check them out. So right here we have our attributes. Each one of these does something different, and you're going to want to look for the attributes for your specific class if you wish to get the maximum value. Now, at the beginning of the game, I would just pick up whatever has the up arrows and just slot that on. Generally, it's not going to be a huge deal. But when you get later on in the game, you're going to want to start to look for those better pieces. For example, we could check out this piece here. We're going to have a 30 fortitude, 31 willpower piece versus a 21 fortitude and 21 strength piece. And willpower almost does nothing for the Crusader, while strength actually gives us extra damage. However, these stats are quite a bit higher, so it's probably just worth it to put it on because of these also giving us combat rating, and we'll go over that in just a moment. But you're just going to want to pick up the pieces that kind of have up arrows generally in the beginning of the game, and then later on you're going to want to focus on the stats that are best for your class. If you don't know what stats are best, generally the damage stats for your melee classes is going to be strength, and for the range classes it's going to be willpower. I believe Demon Hunter is strength. I'm not sure if Monk is strength or willpower. You'll have to look it up. There's plenty of guides out there. Now, you're going to have to go ahead and gear out your character as you move forward. There's also a few ways to actually upgrade your gear. Now, if you're not going to be paying any money for this game, you don't have to worry about legendary gems in the beginning of the game because you don't really get too many legendary crests in general. But if you are going to be paying some money in the game, you can get legendary gems from Elder Rifts, which we'll go over how you get that and all that stuff later on. But you're going to socket them into your primary gear pieces here to get extra combat rating and extra random stats that the gem actually has. On top of that, we're actually going to go to the blacksmith in just a moment here and explain the upgrading for each of these pieces as well as the secondary pieces. But the secondary pieces are your amulet, rings, etc. on the left-hand side, and they're going to be very similar to your primary gear pieces, but you're going to socket in normal gems, and these are very common for both pay-to-play and free-to-play players alike. I believe you get quite a few from the free-to-play version of the Battle Pass here. If we just check out the rewards here. Actually, there we go. You can see here, there's a choice of a few gems, and you're going to get that in the free version. So you're going to get those very easily, and you're going to want to pick up the pink ones down here, the Tourmalines, because you're going to want to go ahead and just do extra damage to cruise through the game early on. So that pretty much goes over the gear. Almost one last thing, we have to go ahead and jump over to the blacksmith here and talk about how we're actually going to be upgrading our gear pieces and what to do with our gear pieces that we're finding out in the wild as we're grinding. So while we're going ahead and clearing monsters are tending to drop a bunch of loot. They're higher quality monsters, and when your inventory gets full, you're not going to be able to pick up any more, which is a very, very poor thing to have happen. So when you're actually going through, you're going to want to go ahead and pick up the blacksmith here and just salvage all these pieces that you actually get that aren't better. So the pieces will be better, and you can go ahead and equip those when you do get them, but you're going to salvage them as you every single time you come back to the town.
It's good to see you.
Also, there is a way to actually upgrade your gear pieces, as you can see here. And I'll move myself back over to the right-hand side because you want to see the actual upgrade pieces. So you can see there's scrap material and enchanted dust. You don't have to go in depth into this one for now. This will be more if you want to learn more. There's obviously, I've put out a currency video myself. So out there, we're going to have a bunch of gear pieces that are certain levels. Now, it's important to note if you socket a gem in or if you level up a piece of gear, you can actually transfer both of those over to another piece of gear in that slot. For example, if I were to equip this chest piece right here, it could say, do you want to transfer the increased rank and socket a gem to the new item? Sure. Now this new item has that exact legendary gem as well as the exact rank, and I can literally freely swap as whenever and however I want. So upgrade your pieces as much as you can when you go to the back of the blacksmith, because it's completely transferable along and out throughout the game. And these are very important things to actually upgrade and keep track of as you're progressing, because it's going to get very, very difficult if you're not upgrading your pieces of gear. It's going to be very, very slow as well. So let's talk about the first thing that you're going to end up doing after you get into the game, and that's going to be storyline. So I have a complete in-depth guide on leveling itself, but when you start out the game, you're going to be doing your storyline up until different parts of the leveling experience, and you're just going to be running through maps, clearing out monsters, doing simple tasks for the storyline, and you're just going to be going through nice and peacefully. Now, in between certain level gaps, you're going to be doing other activities such as Elder Riffs, dungeons, and challenge riffs. Those will generally come up at around level 30, 36, 41, 46, 51, and 56. So there's actually quite a bit of time that you're going to be spending going through and actually clearing through other content besides the storyline. That being said, you're going to want to focus the storyline anytime it pops up and get as much XP from that as possible before transitioning to these other activities. Now, it's important to note that if you do have a 4 group, it'll be slightly faster as well as slightly more rewarding to do these other content pieces. But let's go ahead and just jump back to West March here and talk about Elder Rifts, Challenge Rifts, and Dungeons. So first, let's talk about Elder Rifts, because I believe it's going to be one of the most important things for everyone to do if you happen to have the correct materials. Now, what I mean by that is these things right here, these legendary and rare crests. If you have these, go ahead and just bang out some Elder Rifts when you get to the point where you don't have storyline to do to level up. Going through here and actually just doing it quickly is going to give you a decent amount of experience, as well as progressing your battle pass. And that's very, very important to do. And if you want more information on that, be sure to check out the leveling 1 to 60 guide. But you're going to be running through here and just finishing a certain amount of kills in the allotted time. And I'm entering one here without any crests, and just going to go quickly and show you. You're going to be running through here and killing off these monsters to go ahead and progress this purple bar on the left-hand side. Now, there's a bunch of ways to do this. You could do it any way you want. You can go ahead and clear through all the monsters and do it that way. But what I suggest doing is just running through the Elder Rift, finding these blue packs, stopping to kill them really quickly, and trying your hardest to keep up these kill streaks. And you'll see this in many other areas of the game. Kill streaks are a great way to get extra experience while you're leveling. You're just going to get a bunch of bonus experience depending on how far you've actually been able to maintain your kill streak. And then as you clear through this, a boss is going to spawn once you reach the end of that purple bar. You're going to have to kill the boss, and then the Elder Rift will end. And that is pretty much Elder Rifts. Now, there's a decent amount of loot that you can obtain. And again, if you have those rare and legendary crests, it's going to be excellent to run these, because you're going to get those legendary gems, which you're going to want early on so you can amplify your gear pieces. Now, with that being said, let's jump over to the next one, which is Challenge Rifts. So what are Challenge Rifts? Well, first off, Challenge Rifts can be accessed by this little statue in West March, and they have several difficulties, much more than you can see here. They also have a leaderboard, which is one of my favorite parts of this whole system here. I really enjoy the challenge riffs. You can have parties of 2, 3, or 4. I generally do them solo. And there's going to be a class solo leaderboard as well, based on obviously what class you are from the bottom right over there. Now, what are these actually in terms of actual content? Well, they're basically the exact same thing as Elder Rifts. I'll go ahead and join one right now. It is important to note that with Elder Rifts, you're going to be getting runes as well if you use legendary crests and rare crests and all sorts of materials like that. For these challenge rifts, they're actually going to be one of your only ways to get something called enigmatic crystals. And that is sort of a jargon for basically things that allow you to upgrade your secondary gear pieces that we went over earlier on. Another thing to know about these challenge rifts is that they give decent XP, but they're not necessarily used for actually leveling up. They're more of like a one and done type thing. You complete it, you get your rewards, and then you try to get the leaderboard, or on the leaderboards rather. And then you move on to other content, and then you use those resources to upgrade your gear pieces. You can see that they're actually significantly harder than the Elder Rifts, as I'm struggling to clear out this one quite as fast as the Elder Rifts, and I actually have the potential of dying here. I'm not super focused on dodging all the damage and all that good stuff right now, but they are and tend to be much harder, as they are meant to be sort of a benchmark / climbing feature of the game. So I would definitely recommend that you keep up on your challenge rifts as you're clearing content, which will allow you to basically upgrade your gear. It's really not that long. Generally, these challenge rifts will take anywhere from 2 to 3 to 8 to 9 minutes. If you're any longer than that, you're probably not going to be able to finish it, or it's just not necessarily worth doing. Just come back later on and you'll save a bunch of time. This will allow you to upgrade your secondary gear pieces, as I mentioned, to basically allow you for an easier grinding experience. All that being said, let's go over one of the most important parts of the leveling experience, as well as the later game experience for the first 2 weeks, and that is dungeons. So next up is dungeons, and you can find all the dungeons here in the Battle Pass menu, and you can actually just take yourself to whatever dungeon you would like. Now, each of these dungeons are going to be dropping a bunch of loot, gold, and later on set items, but more importantly, it's a major source of experience for the early levels. On top of that, you're going to find quite a few upgrades for your gear to help you get through the leveling process. And when you do reach that level 60, they're basically where you're going to be spending 80, if not 90, maybe even 95% of your time grinding for better gear and doing it for your Paragon levels. Now, all that's going to be maybe if you're a casual player, a few days in. So just keep these in mind for really leveling up your characters. And you could choose any one of these. I do recommend going for the ones that maybe have a 2 times for the battle pass, or going for the ones that are perhaps easier or give you more loot. Generally, it's going to be Mad Kings or Forgotten Tower. Forgotten Tower specifically gives you a little bit more loot. Mad Kings is going to be one of the faster ones to be able to complete. So keep that in mind when you're going ahead and grinding. But those are the major forms of content that you're going to be spending your time in this game. I also quickly want to mention that, as I mentioned with the storyline earlier, there's actually a lot of open world content. Now, once you reach actually the level 60 and you can start changing difficulties, then you can actually access more of it, and there's going to be more quests, there's going to be more events. But even before that, you can actually run around the map and clear packs of monsters to get a decent amount of experience as well. But that is pretty much the overview for gear leveling and some of the content that you can do in the game. I do really quickly want to mention that you're going to want to making sure you're spending the resources that you get wisely. And so what I mean by that is make sure you're not just randomly buying things from the shops. I recommend that you save a majority of what you get because you don't need it. Even when you reach level 60, the time that you take to clear a dungeon is usually going to be determined by your overall group. Yes, your own gear stats is going to be nice if you increase it, obviously, but you need a decent group that knows what they're doing. And if you already have that, then it's not going to increase the time all that much. Also, another thing that you can be doing is PvP. If you tend to enjoy that, you can get into it early. And there's a few shops, especially this Hilts trader right here I wanted to mention. As a beginner, you're going to want to check this shop every 12 hours, I believe, or 24 hours. Whenever it resets, I can press notify me if I am interested in that. And you're going to want to pick up the crests from here. And then in the general, you can actually pick up a mystery legendary item early on if you want to basically accelerate your progress. But getting the rare crest and the legendary crests are very, very important, especially as an early game player. Getting that legendary crests and getting your first legendary gem, if you're not pay to play, then you're going to get a massive advantage from that gem. Overall, that's pretty much what I have for you. There's a lot more things to know about this game, but I feel like that gives you a generally decent understanding as to someone who's interested in starting out the game and they've never played a Diablo game before. And of course, they want to have at least some knowledge of what they're going to be doing, how they're going to be doing it, and overall what should be done correctly. That being said, if you did enjoy, please drop a subscribe on the channel, give the video a like, and I will see you tomorrow for more Diablo Immortal content.